Hello everybody, this is Sean, and this is going to be the start of a series of videos where I'm going to be taking you through as I turn these frozen berries into about 21 liters of wine. We've got ourselves 7.5 kilos of blackberries and 2 kilos of a 4-berry blend. We have those added in just to add a little bit of variety to the flavor, and because it'll give a variety of different materials for the yeasts to feast upon and end up with a better wine than if we did just one type of fruit. I also have my big fermenting bucket. I've also used a food-safe bucket that you can buy at Home Depots. I've got my giant spoon that I use for working with fermenting. I got that at a homebrew place. Got myself a 23-liter carboy, which you can use to make your wine in. I've also in the past used one of those 10-liter big or 10-gallon big jugs that you get water in. And then on top of this, I've got a lid. I've got a airlock for when I'm fermenting, as well as a bigger airlock for on top of the carboy. Got myself a hygrometer, I believe that's how it's pronounced, which is used to measure the sugar content or the specific gravity of the water, which tells us how much sugar I've put in there and should let us know how much alcohol you're going to end up with in your final product. I then have some champagne yeast. I've picked champagne yeast because it can live up to, I believe, in 21% alcohol, which gets me a higher alcohol volume in my end product. I also have about a liter of Welch's grape juice, which you use to replace some of the water that you're adding in there, especially if you're moving between batches and siphoning between the bucket and the carboy. You lose some liquid every time. You lose some to the brewers as well, and to replace that, I use the grape juice. I also have a siphon, which is a plastic tube. I don't have it in this shot for you. And I'm going to need 6 kilos of sugar to go with the 9.5 kilos of fruit that I have. You can do the math for that yourself if you're in the imperial system. And then we also have some one-step sanitizer, which is basically when you mix it with water, it makes a hydrogen peroxide solution that you just rinse all of your equipment in to make sure it's nice and sanitary, so that the only thing growing in there is the yeasts that you've added. And to do that, it's 1 tablespoon per 1 liter of water, so I've got myself a 2-liter container that I'll make 2 liters of this at a time and use that to rinse out all of my equipment. I might put in a little video of us just rinsing everything there for you guys, because that is the first step that you're going to need to do. And the second step that I'm going to do is taking all of these berries, running them through our pots here with a little bit of sugar, just to help them break down a little bit at the start before we get them into our fermenting bucket. So from here, it's on to cleaning and sanitizing. Okay, now it's time to sanitize our equipment. So I've got 2 liters of water measured out in our little jug here, and I'm going to get myself 2 teaspoons of the one-step sanitizer and mix it in there. And to make our lives easy, because I need to sanitize the spoon anyway, I use our giant spoon to stir that up. It dissolves fairly quickly, and then you've made yourself a peroxide solution, which can be used for sanitizing. So to start off, you take any of the tools that you want to be sanitizing, like these, and you just dump them in there. You let these guys soak for a while. You don't have to rinse anything. Just get it in there. Rinse off your finger, so you don't want to sanitize your fingers too much. Once they've sat in there for about 30 seconds, it's okay to remove them and let them air dry. There's no need to rinse because this just turns into water and oxygen when it's done. And then after this has sat for 30 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and pour all of this into my big bucket here and swirl it around to make sure that I've coated all of the sides of it. I'm going to keep it in here for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, swirling occasionally, just to make sure that this ends up getting fully sanitized. So I'm not going to show you me doing that whole process. I'm just letting you guys know that's what I'm doing next. So from here, it's on to showing you how I start off my berries that are going to go into my freshly cleaned and sanitized bucket. For our next step in making the wine, we've got to take our berries or our fruit and just give them a little kickstart so that they start breaking down right away. This gets more juices and flavors out of them. It's less important when you're using a frozen berry like I am, because frozen berries are already a little bit broken down for you, which is kind of nice. So we're not gonna have to boil this for as long as we would with some fresh fruit. Normally you just slice up your berries and everything. With a fresh fruit, you would put it straight inside the little bucket that you have, and then you would let that go for about 3 days before you would take it out and boil it and then mash it to get everything out. With a frozen fruit, I start off by bringing them up to heat first. I'm just going to put them into my pots here in various batches. I'll show you a little bit of footage of them cooking down. You put them in the pot, put in just enough water so that they're starting to float, and then you wait until the water starts to boil. And once that's happened, then you're done. And you can go ahead and put them in your bucket. And once you've got all your berries in your bucket, you use the gradated numbers on the side to bring yourself up to maybe a liter or two above where your actual goal is, because you are going to lose a little bit through, what's that word when water goes into the air? Evaporation. That's it. Thank you to the wife for knowing the word evaporation. Anyway, I'm going to get these berries into these pots, which is very difficult to do one-handed. So I will catch you guys when these are cooking. Okay, as you can see, the fruit mixture that we have here is just starting to come to a boil, so that's as long as you need to leave this on the heat. You just want the berries to start breaking down. You're not looking to actually cook them, because you want your flavors to be fresh. Then we take this, and we dump it into our primary fermenting bucket. And then it's time to put more berries in your pot, and start cooking the next batch. Once you have them all done, then you're going to fill up the rest with water, and that's when you start thinking about your yeast and everything. But for now, I'm going to keep cooking berries. Okay, there we go. Our berries are cooked down. We've got 16 liters of berry and water in here, and my goal is to be between 21 to 23, which means that we've got at least 5 liters of water to add to this. Before we do that, there's a couple other things that we're going to be putting in here too. I've got 375 grams of some golden raisins. I put these straight in here. Some people like to soak them first and then blend them. The whole purpose of them is food for the yeast. And you know what? They're gonna get soaked in here anyway. It's hot, it's good. That's just all I feel that I need to do. I'm also gonna be putting 4 kilos of sugar in here. The reason why I'm putting it in right now before I add all the water is the water's gonna cool it down a little, and sugar dissolves a bit easier when it's warm. So I'm going to hand the camera off and get that in there. And just dump her in. Realistically, I'm probably going to need a couple extra kilos of sugar for this.
What's a kilo?
It's a metric measurement used everywhere in the world except for the United States. 1 pound, I believe. Oh yeah, is it?
1 pound, 1 kilo is 2.2 pounds.
Oh yeah, 1 kilo is 2.246 pounds. So that should help you guys figure that out. So our first 2 liters, that brings us up to 20 liters by the side measurement. So I'm gonna add 4 more liters of water probably. Might just add 3. That should be enough water for that. Then we're going to let this sit until it comes down to room temperature so that it's cool enough that it won't kill the yeast when we put it in there. So for now, I'm just going to keep adding water to this, stir it, and let it sit for a while. And I'll see you guys later. Then we're back later in the night. The must that we've created, which is what you call the mixture of berry and sugars when you're fermenting, has cooled down enough now that, well, it is just a slightly warm to the touch. It's no longer hot enough that it's going to kill my yeast, and I can actually work with it if I need to. I've had my airlock on there since we first put it in. I think I forgot to mention that. It's filled halfway with water so that gases can escape this, but nothing can get in. It's what's going to keep everything in there nice and sanitary. But we've got more to do to this before it's ready, so I'm going to meet you at the counter. Okay, we're over at the counter, and I've got my tools ready. I've got a flask here to be able to do our testing. I've got this giant baster here to be able to take a sample of our liquid. got my hygrometer so I can test the specific gravity and make sure that we have enough sugar in there. And I've got our yeast, as well as a little bit of warm water for us to get it started. So first, I'm going to open this up, get into there and mix it together. And then that's going to have to sit for 15 minutes, just to make sure that the yeast is all hydrated and ready to go before we mix it in with everything. And let's get that started. Yeast is opened. As you can see, it looks just like bread yeast does, because it is a yeast. So we treat it the same. Keep it in the fridge. Make sure that you give it a chance to energize itself before putting it to work. Stir that up. Ooh, it immediately smells yeasty in here. So I'm pretty sure this is an active and healthy yeast, which is good, because I don't want to have to run out to the store. We're going to set that aside, and I'm going to go back over to the wine and get us a sample that we can test to check the specific gravity. That's going to tell us if we need to add more sugar. We're over at the wine, so I'm going to take off my airlock and get ourselves our samples. And that's enough. And I'll meet you back over at the counter. Okay, we're over at the counter, and we've got our vial. So now it's time to put in our hygrometer or hydrometer and see how much sugar we have in here. Okay. We are in the table wine section, right at the 90, which gives us about a 10, 11. We would get about 12% alcohol from this right now, as it is. We like to have ours a little bit stronger, so I'm probably going to add another 2 kilos of sugar into this. That's why I do these measurements, so that we know kind of what the end result's going to be like when we do our wine. And I would prefer more than 12%. Our yeast has sat for a little bit, and now, as you can see, it has bloomed and is ready for us to go ahead and use it. I've also added another 2 kilos of sugar to our must and remeasured it. Now it's got enough sugar in there that we should reach about a 14% alcohol per volume when we're done, which is around what you want for a nice dessert wine. Good. So I'm going to take this and get that inside this. I'm going to open this up for the final time tonight. We'll take our yeast, pour that on in there. And then I'm going to give this a big ol' stir to make sure that it's all mixed through. And then we're going to put our lid back on there, and all things good, tomorrow we should see some bubbling action. The next day it should be more vigorous. And then within 3 to 5 days, we should be ready to rack this out and get it from what this is called the primary fermentation into the carboy, which we will clean out again at that point, even though we did clean it now, and get that in there. Once the wine is in the carboy, it gets to stay there for 3 months before we rack it out again. But this stage here, again, is as little as 3 days, as much as 7 days. We're going to have to take our measurements on it. Basically, once we see that that there's less bubbles coming out of here in the little airlock, that means that the fermentation has slowed down. At that point, I'm going to test it with the hygrometer again. If we're very close to where it's 0% alcohol rating or a 1.0, if what you're looking for on its little rating meter, I think we're at like a 1.14 now. That'll tell us that this part is done and it's time for us to strain out those berries. So I'm going to see you guys next when it's time to strain out those berries. There might be a little bit of video footage of me checking in on it and everything mixed in with that next video. But for now, you're going to have to wait a week and like and subscribe and hit that notification button so that you know when our next video comes out, because I'm really looking forward to sharing this wine with you guys and seeing how it works out in the end. Anyway, for tonight, that's been fun, and this is part 1 of our winemaking video. Have a great night. Goodbye.